reveal how money blocking stories unlock the gateway to happiness, wealth, and freedom. I'm your host, Angela Dumas, and I'm on a mission to help spiritual entrepreneurs and personal development junkies heal the relationship with money so you can finally access the freedom you so richly deserve. We've gathered a powerful panel of high vibe experts on the concepts and ideas around mindset, manifesting, money, and spirituality. And today we are highlighting the beautiful Alana Renee Kellner. Alana Kellner is a certified neurolinguistic programming practitioner. She's a certified infinite possibilities trainer and a Reiki level 2 practitioner. She helps women who have been in unhealthy, toxic relationships learn to trust again. She mentors with compassion, guiding her clients to release years of hurt and pain to learn trust again. After being on her own healing journey from narcissistic relationships, Alana left her 20+ year mortgage career to helping other women heal from the devastating life left by unhealthy, toxic relationships. So welcome, Alana. Alana. So pause or duty. So welcome, Alana. And it's so nice to have you here today. Thank you for spending your time and efforts to make it, because I know it takes something to come on in and do this.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and really looking forward to just seeing all of the speakers together and just everybody being able to serve in this way. So thank you for asking me and for having me. Very grateful.
Well, we're delighted to have you. So I think we should just get right into it. And
Sure.
what was it that you learned growing up? You must have had some kind, because I'm asking everyone this idea of what kind of childhood messages did you receive around money? Was it the fear around it or the scarcity around it? Or were there positive messages?
Well, I was raised by a single mom, so there was a lot of scarcity. And it was definitely, I remember I've been aware of this constant message in my head of there's never enough, right? There's never enough money. And looking back at my childhood, I don't really necessarily remember her saying that specifically, but that was definitely the message I received was there was just never enough. And as an adult, and even as a mom and being a single mom myself, that's really when it got really loud was there's just never enough. And no matter what I did, there was just never enough. Money came in, money went out faster than it came in. And it was just this constant, there was never enough. So that was definitely, and I now can see where my mom got that message from her parents, right? My grandparents coming out of the Great Depression. So it was definitely a message of never enough.
I totally get it. And that ends up affecting your beliefs around money in the now, right? Or how you move and transition into adulthood. So did you notice that? I mean, you came from mortgage, right? But so that may have actually made you feel stable in some way. But was there something that, or even maybe continues today, where that you come in and out of it? Or is it more smooth now?
Oh, it's still definitely up and down. And it's really definitely related to where I am mentally and emotionally. So, being in the mortgage industry, a lot of people are like, oh, you must have made so much money. It's interesting because I never made that much money. And it wasn't that there wasn't money to be made. I actually had, when I was in the processing days and I was mostly salaried, I made good money. But when it was left up to me, commission based, that's where it was never enough. And it was so, once I became aware of it, it was so loud. But it was definitely, even in the mortgage industry, not enough, not enough, not enough. And it still today is, even with all of the work that I've done, it's still today, depending on where my mind is and where my emotions are and whatever may be happening in my life, it still goes up and down. I don't think we ever reach this point where it's just we've arrived. I think it's an ongoing, we level up, right? And we're constantly leveling up. But so it might, go like this and then go out like, you're constantly leveling up, but I don't think we ever arrive anywhere. We're constantly just having to deal with our stuff as it comes up because the different life situations come up that may trigger us in a different way. I usually just relate to it as that onion, peeling away those layers of the onion, and I think I get to the core and there's a whole new onion. So yeah, I definitely do still deal with it today, and my relationship with money today is very, very different than it was even a year ago.
How so?
Well, um, I, part my in my intro, you referenced that I work with women healing from unhealthy toxic relationships, and that really came out of my own life experience and discovering a pattern of narcissistic relationships, right? I'd gone through a breakup that kind of like rocked my world, that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I reached out to a friend and I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now, but I need help. And so I went through this path and discovered, that I had this history of narcissistic relationships. And when I really started looking at it, it goes all the way back to my father, right? My birth father is the original narcissist for me, and created from that relationship with him, I created all of these defense mechanisms almost, right? And this identity, this people pleaser, and constantly chasing his love, and just these coping mechanisms, I call them now, just to survive. And it carried out in my life, not just romantic relationships, friendships, jobs, all sorts of areas, and money. It shows up in money,
That's
right?
goes up. Yep. How you do money is how you do everything. And your relationship with yourself and others, that is the external, like that's what's underneath of money, right?
Yes, yes, and it is. It's all just a reflection of what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And it's, we all want, so yes, it's all a reflection of the money is an external representation of what's going on inside. Our romantic relationships are an external representation of what's going on inside. All of it is, right? So what I learned is, because once I discovered this pattern, I immediately knew that there were two sides to the coin. There was the narcissist, nothing I can do about that. I don't, I learned everything there was about narcissism, but I also learned everything there was about this abuse syndrome. And I went to work on myself to heal myself so I just wouldn't have that experience anymore. And one of the bonuses, I guess, is I discovered it in my money relationship, right? So I was doing a 5-day challenge, and they were asking me, because I'm like, my whole life, I'm like, I'm smart, right? Why is this money so difficult for me to get a handle on? Right? I'm smart. I know what to do with money. My degree is financial management, right? But it was always so like I couldn't ever grasp it. And the harder I tried, the worse it got. And I couldn't figure it out. I've done years of personal development. I've done, law of attraction. I've done all of it. I do Reiki, I do energy work. And I couldn't ever grasp it, right? It just always kind of stayed out there. And so it was when I started on this journey and I did this little 5-day challenge. I'm like, okay, maybe one more thing will help give me access to it. And she was asking, like, she wanted us to create our ideal relationship with money. If we were to pretend money was a spouse, right? A romantic partner, what relationship would we want? Like, create our ideal relationship. I couldn't do it. I had no idea. And this was shortly after I discovered my narcissistic pattern relationships, right? And I couldn't do it. I had no idea what it looked like. And so I started like, okay, so what is my current relationship with money? And all of a sudden I saw it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have a narcissistic relationship with money. And I'm like, well, of course I do, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it just manifests differently, right? And so I started diving in that. I'm like, okay, so if I have a narcissistic relationship with money, that's not any different than the romantic relationships I've had, the bosses I've had, the best friends that I've had. So I can heal it the same way, which comes back to me,
Yes.
which comes back to me and creating a secure relationship with myself, the secure attachment with myself, and me being solid in myself and going through all of, the steps that I take my clients through too, is healing that relationship with myself has instantly just transformed my relationship with money, everything in my life.
It'll do it. It's the
Yes.
thing. That's in fact why I use the subject of money, because when people say, what do you mean a relationship with money? How do I do that? Because it's got like the form of paper or coins, and we have all these constructs that are wrapped around it, we almost don't realize that it is a direct relationship. In fact, it's probably the most profound one, but very hidden from view. It's like a hidden culprit, right? And this is actually what becomes what I call the miracle blockers. Miracle blockers push it away. That's the negativity. It's the thing you don't see. It's the invisibility stuff. And then, here you are looking at it. And again, it's like same thing when anytime we're working in our own personal development, whatever the words we're using for someone else, we have to also apply to us, because there's a tiny bit of truth in it. And that's not to say you're narcissistic or that, but there is something there that is blocked, or a continuing non-full, it's a program is really what it is, right? It's a program, and it's a program that keeps getting clicked every time the words or these feelings and emotions trigger it. So yep, and you're right on it. This is really gorgeous. So out of this, I'm sure you must have had some let's start before miracles. Let's see, what has it been? How are you still in transformation of this right now? What are you doing right now that you're still looking at to flip it? Because I think a lot of people are maybe where you are right now.
Well, I'm constantly doing my own inner work, right? That's just a must. I notice where I'm triggered. I notice when the confusion sets in, right? Anywhere, whether it's simply in a conversation with someone and suddenly like the world, like everything starts getting smaller and the confusion, it really, for me, it occurs as it starts going like this and the confusion sets in, right? So I start noticing my body reactions. I notice I'm very aware of how I react with my triggers, because I may not necessarily spot the trigger. However, my reaction is like that. And I can spot my reaction a lot faster than the thought of whatever the trigger is, or the action of what the trigger actually is. And I do want to go back real quick for a moment. When you mentioned about, looking back, flip that mirror effect, right? That we do need to look at the mirror, the reflection coming back at us. What I've discovered is that it's not always a direct reflection back. Like you said, there's a piece of it. And I know for me, it's not that, well, first of all, a lot of people like to say, well, all of us are narcissistic to some extent. I always change that to, no, we're all selfish to some extent. That's not narcissistic. And we do need to be selfish. We need to protect ourselves. We need to have our boundaries. And I don't call that selfish anyways, right?
Right.
That's healthy. Okay. So having this self-awareness is healthy. And where I had fallen was so if this is the narcissistic side of the coin and this is me over here, what it is it's the exact opposite of the narcissistic. I had no boundaries. I
Right.
had no sense of what my values were. I had no sense of self because it had all been, eroded away inside of the abuse cycle, right? And that's where I needed to come in and shore up. And that's what the mirror was reflecting back to me. And so that I'm always aware of that. So when I trip over something, and I'm very kinesthetic, so my so I'm usually, I do experience things and like I trip, right? The road bumps, right? Uh, when I hit those lows, or something's not going the way I want it to, I'm very aware of, okay, where did I not honor myself instead of honor my boundary, right? Where where am I not being aware and voicing and asking for my own needs? It always comes back down to, or what emotion am I not allowing myself to feel? Right?
Yes.
I always come back to, where am I not honoring myself, capital S self? And when I do that, it switches. And it is, and you said it, the miracle blockers. When, as I've been doing this work and really looking at it specifically from a money standpoint, there's two relationships, I believe, in our lives that are the most apparent for us to look at and see all of our stuff, right? If we're willing to really look, that's our romantic relationships and our relationship with money. It's all right there if we're willing to look. Those are the two easiest relationships to look at. And so when I was looking at my money relationship and I healed that, because for me, that was easier to grasp. It was more real than the romantic relationship, because I had so much stuff still, wrapped up in it. Right. But I could unravel the money relationship a lot easier. Right. Because I definitely wanted to heal that one and bring more in. Right. I wanted those experiences of that's never enough to be over. Right. And so as I've done this work and worked on self, right, worked on myself and worked on honoring myself, what are my needs? What are my emotions? Right? All of it, miracles happen in so many different ways. And, you know, that's where the fun comes back in, right? It just becomes fun again and magical. And I'm like, oh, right. I can manifest like this, right?
Yeah. And that whole never enough means it's not never enough in the relationship, as in the romance relationship either. And like I said, conversely, earlier, that money might be hard to kind of explain how you have a relationship with it, but it can also be a little easier conversely, because you're not kissing it or hugging it, or, you know, money is energy, it magnifies stuff, right? So it's a little bit more inanimate. So that part of the puzzle you can kind of work on, and then that will transmit as well into the romance. But both of those still have to do with the origin, money, the original story, so to speak, and what they taught and what they were taught. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
and your boundary thing, that's really it. It's, we don't realize our own strength and the power. It always lies within. It's not ever in any one or thing else, including money or another person. But these are the mirror reflections. It's like part of the quantum field that is like a biofeedback system, that whatever goes out there, it just bounces back. Right.
And that's why I want to bring it back to like myself included, right? But myself and the women I work with, because I do, we're kind of in a class of our own. I don't really like saying that, and yet I kind of have to honor it that way. And the fact that, and I'll speak of narcissistic relationships specifically right now, the chaos that is created inside of that abuse cycle, what it creates inside of the person is this the total and complete confusion. You don't trust yourself because you're constantly being told, that's not right, that didn't happen, you're crazy, you're overreacting, you're dramatic, all of it. And it's and what it does on us as a person, our psyche, I guess, for a lack of a better word right now, is it creates a level of I can't. It creates a level of such internal chaos that you just can't put your feet on the ground. You know what you want, and but you've been cut off, chopped off at the knees so many times and told you can't be successful. You don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're even bothering, right? And when you experience this over months even, but years, my entire life, right? When you experience that, you begin to believe it,
Mhm.
right? And it becomes very internalized. And so when we try to, and I'll say I, in this case, speak specifically for myself, when I try to do the normal methods of personal development, normal, like this, like just change your thought pattern, or I don't even really know how to describe it, but it doesn't really work with us because there's such an ingrained deep wound. Like I had no access to what my money relationship was before. And so getting to the wound takes a little more finagling. But once it's there, I call it stepping outside of the trauma matrix. Once you can even just glimpse it, right? You don't even have to unravel the whole thing. Once you can just glimpse it, you can step outside of it, and then all of it starts unraveling. And
Exactly.
that's when you can get access to your money story,
Yeah.
right? That's when you can get access to everything, and it just starts unraveling.
Yeah. So what then that leads us perfectly to what three things do you do to manage your mind when the negativity starts creeping into your awareness around money or whatever is going on? What are those three things that you do to kind of get on track and get back into your groove because you've caught yourself?
hmm Um, if the top three things, and I'm not quite sure which order they come in, but they all kind of happen at the same time, is I usually realize I'm worrying about money, right? So if money didn't come in that I was expecting, or more went out than I was expecting, and all of a sudden now I'm in this uncomfortable, not enough, right? I recognize I'm worrying about money. And so I immediately stop worrying about money. And that's taken practice, right? It really is a mastery to stop worrying about money, because I also am very aware that when I worry about money, that actually repels it. And so I remind myself how I'm always 100% provided for. And I start listing them,
Perfect.
right? To remind myself, because people don't worry about money because they have money. They have money because they don't worry about money. And I paraphrased one of my mentors from that one. And but it is, so that's one, is I really become aware of whether or not I'm worrying about money. And I do whatever it takes to stop worrying about money. And it's usually just listing where I'm always provided for 100% of the time.
Going
And then
right.
what was that?
You're going right into trust.
Trust. Yes. And that's what it all comes back down to, is trust. And then I also am aware of, where am I triggered? Like, what story popped back up? What belief system popped back out? What triggered me? Because it's usually something triggers me. And then I get in touch with, again, go back to, where did I not honor my boundaries? Where did I not ask for what I needed? Am I just overtired, right? So I look at honoring myself. Where did I not honor myself? And then the third one is, I get an action, frankly, right? Like I just get an action. Okay, what's one action I can take? And it's not necessarily an action to go make money, but what do I need to do? Right? Do I need to go clean the bathroom? Right? Do I need to, what is it, just something I need to do? I just go get an action. Do I need to go take an action in my business? Right? What is it that's something I need to do? And I just go take an action followed by another action. And then I'm back in. I don't like using the word control, because it's not control. I'm centered again.
Well, I'm going to say this because a couple people have said it. there's nothing wrong with being and having control, being in control and having it, because that's not a place of desire or wanting. It's the want for control. The wanting is, I don't have it, right? It's like, oh no, I'm without it. And that creates that spin cycle. So when you're centered and grounded, you're not looking for control. You said it a little while ago. You're not wanting for money. If you have money, you're just there. It's like having elbows. Rarely, I know that some people may not have that, and if anyone's watching that doesn't have them, I'm not trying to single you out or be rude in any way, but generally people have like eyelashes and, you know, elbows or maybe a belly button. We're never wanting, we're never in desire of that, we're never lusting after that. So you're allowed to have control, because that's what groundedness is being there, right? And I love that,
Yes.
because again, about being in the body, grounding. So I love that. So you are looking at your triggers, what triggered you. Maybe there's an emotion that's up, then you get into action. And the first one was uh,
Worry.
with the worry, getting out of doubt into sitting into the seat of trust. And again, you might need these three things pulled together as a thing that you do in some kind of consecutive way to focus you long enough to get back into the self, right? Because that ego and that mind will pull us out and pull us out, and then we have to stick with it. Some people stop short, right?
Absolutely. And it is, sometimes then there is no set order for me. It's whatever comes up for me in the moment, right? But those typically are my three things. The other thing is the amount of time it takes varies. Sometimes it's just real quick, sometimes it takes longer. And I also want to point out too is like sometimes when I was talking about the action, one thing that I forgot to or didn't mention is so very important is that sometimes the action I take is the inaction.
Correct. I love that.
Sometimes I just need to sit and let whatever needs to process. If I need to be angry about something, I allow those emotions to move through me so they don't unpack and stay, right? But sometimes it is like, nope, I just need to be right now, and I'll check out doing, I'll go do something creative, or just inaction is an action too, and sometimes it's the most important action you can do.
That's really beautifully said. And I'm glad you said it, because I was going to ask about that. So in other words, it sounds to me that you're kind of answering the question of what happens in the flux and flow of life. Because right now we're all having to ride the waves, the ups and downs, the ins and outs, the reversals and the flip arounds, right? And so you're telling us how you're managing your mind. So you're trusting, you're sitting into yourself, you're taking note, as and all these things always take us into a new frame of focus, right? So what is the most important thing for the audience that you could share with them in order to navigate the climate as it is, especially with regards to money and purpose?
Right now, I think what we don't give enough credit for is the amount of turmoil that people really are dealing with, right? And the impact that it has and how it shows up externally, how it is showing up in our businesses, how it is showing up in our relationships, how it is showing up in our money, right? Um, because chronic emotional trauma is my world. It's what I'm so aware of it, and I can see it in other people. And I think, especially we're dealing right now with COVID and everything that's going on, we don't give enough credit to those past hurts coming up, and coming up at a level that we can't hide from it anymore right now. We can't numb out from it anymore by being super busy, on the go, go, go. All of the coping mechanisms that we've created and developed throughout our lives, we don't have access to most of those anymore. And so I think the first thing I want to say is just give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace for whatever emotion may be coming up, right? And allow those, and it's okay to have those emotions, and don't unpack them and move in, right? So start becoming aware of your triggers. Okay? Start becoming aware of what what is happening that is causing XYZ action or response, right? Um, and just awareness is the first thing. And then once you become aware, you can choose something new. You can choose to do something new, which is what is ultimately what starts the healing process, right? Choosing something new. And so if you notice a trigger, I don't know, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're still figuring out this pivot business, right? How are you pivoting your business? And you're still trying to figure it out. And, everybody's businesses, most people's businesses have been hurt by this time period. And so if you're still trying to get your feet back underneath you after your pivot, and, you know, that's going to bring up a lot of the stuff too. And so notice what is triggering you. And if you can catch yourself, and usually you're going to notice it after the fact, but if you can catch yourself and then start noticing and choose a different action, where are you worrying about money? Are you worrying about money, right? Where are you not honoring your own boundaries? Where are you not honoring yourself? And just start becoming aware of some of this, and you're going to start noticing where you are able to make new decisions. And that's really it. Um, yeah, that would be really kind of that for me. That's just it, because that's change starts there with self-awareness. If you don't have self-awareness, you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and not even know what you're doing. So that's my advice, is self-awareness, just bit by bit.
This comes into the free gift. If we could talk about that for a minute. What is your free gift for the lovely viewers here that are listening to every word?
Definitely. I'm very excited about this. So, because I do work with women who have had unhealthy, toxic relationships, narcissistic relationships, generally what they know what a narcissist is, right? But they don't necessarily know what narcissism is and the abuse syndrome, right? And so they've created this very elaborate defense system to keep narcissists out. And what they don't realize is that also keeps money out. And so the free gift that I have is a worksheet workbook to help you identify. Well, first of all, it's really going to help you identify what the abuse syndrome is and how it shows up. But also, it's going to help you identify what is your money relationship. What is your relationship with money? Do you have an unhealthy, toxic relationship with money too? So this worksheet workbook will help you identify that, and that's my free gift.
That's really great. I think a lot of people will be able to use that. And it doesn't mean that everyone that will, need that will take this on has to feel like they're in an abusive relationship. You might not be. There's still something about the narcissistic aspect, which you talked about, the other side of the coin. Where is it that you're repelling money? Because that's kind of one of my favorite things to work with. And I think it's great that if someone is really ready for that with you, it blends the two together really well. If you're working on yourself, you're working on your money. So kudos. Thank you so much for bringing your lovely, beautiful human self to us and to connect. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it so much, and this is one of my favorite topics. So thank you for allowing me to get my story out there, a little bit of it. And, my hope is just that someone might recognize themselves in it too, and know that they're not the crazy one, that there is hope, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you for allowing me that opportunity.
You're welcome. This is a great opportunity for everyone to really delve into their self-development, workings, because, some people seem really busy, but there's still a pause in the world. And there may be, we don't know what's yet to come. So the more you do to work on yourself, the healthier you're going to be and the happier relationship you're going to have with yourself and everything else, including money. And you get to clear
Absolutely.
your karma. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alana. Lovely to see you. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you.